everyone, slightly different video. As you can tell from the title, we've got some pretty big things to talk about. I debated whether to make this video, and I've tried making this video probably like 4 or 5 times now. And I sat with Dan and I had a little cry and was like, I just want to make sure I can advocate for other women so they don't end up in my situation. And so here we are, we're going to talk about it. And if anyone here is debating fighting for their health and their medical, this is a video to tell you to go bloomin' do it. Don't let anyone gaslight you into thinking it's in your head or anything like that. Like, go fight for what you think is wrong with your body. So, as you can tell from the title, I've been diagnosed with endometriosis. Something I've known for years I've had, but never been able to get a medical diagnosis. Mine is pretty bad. I feel like a lot of people with endometriosis say that. So I don't know, comparative to other people, if this is worse than theirs or better than theirs or anything. But my doctor has described it as extremely severe. So, take that as you will. So we're going to go down a little bit of a lesson for you if you don't know what endometriosis is, and we're going to talk about my history and how we got here, because I just need to get this out and you guys are my verbal diary. If you don't know what endometriosis is, it's essentially when the lining of a lady's womb doesn't just grow on the inside the womb, it grows on the outside the womb and attaches itself to other organs. No one knows why this happens, and as of yet there isn't full medical concrete fixes for this, but there are certain things we can do to fix it. Endometriosis isn't just in your womb, it can also be in your bowel and your bladder. They're the typical places you find it, but it's been proven that it can also affect your heart and your lungs. Yeah, so it's not just a small thing. It's not a one size fits all illness. It's chronic, and everyone's is different. So there's your little overview. That's as much of it I can tell you. I'm not a medical professional, but I have obviously done quite a bit of research over the years. So how did I end up here making this video? When I was in my early teens, actually even before I was in my teens, I was going to the doctors complaining of a variety of symptoms, both before, during and after my menstrual cycle, my weeklies, whatever you want to call them. And I was suffering. I was taking loads of time off school. And I did have a doctor then who was actually quite informative, and she listened. And I don't think endometriosis crossed her mind because I was very young. And back then there was, and even now there's still a belief that endometriosis is something you get when you're old. But actually it's something you can get as soon as you've got, reproductive organs are on the move and working. Maybe even before that, if I remember rightly, when I spoke to my doctor. But anyway, I was told it was a condition called dysmenorrhea, which essentially just means heavy, painful weekly cycles. And take paracetamol and ibuprofen and crack on with it. So that was that for many years. I used to go back to the doctors every couple of months with the same complaints, and they put me on contraceptive pills. They helped control it, but they didn't help with the pain management and the other symptoms that come along with it. And I basically was trying to fight that fight on my own from the age of 11 until the age of 30. It's a long time. We then fast forward to 2018, and I was having drinks with my housemates one night and got this very sudden pain which I felt like was in my bladder. So I went to go to the toilet, but as soon as I stood up it was crippling. I ended up in hospital. My housemate Kim took me. Thank you, Kim. Hope you're well. And again, they confirmed it wasn't kidneys, it wasn't appendicitis, there was nothing wrong with my bladder. And then I said, do you think this has got something to do with potentially endometriosis? And they were like, no, you've got no diagnosis. We'll just say it's bad periods. And I was like, I'm not on my period. I'm not even close to my cycle. Those pains continued all the way through 2019 and 2020. I tried to continue as normal and go to work and be my happy, slightly sarcastic, jolly self. But as time went on, it got worse. They put me on this odd concoction that was like a super strength cocodamol that they told me not to share because it's borderline an opium, with ibuprofen, which you're not meant to mix, but they were like, do it if it helps, take it. It didn't help. I just turned into a zombie. I had my bosses calling me up on not doing my job good enough. I had friends who would stop hanging out with me because I was unreliable, because I wasn't, you know, I wasn't present in the conversation. I was physically there, but mentally I was gone. I was in so much pain. And I'm lucky in the few friends I had that recognised that this wasn't me. This was something as an extra or external factor. And that then continued into me learning to teach. But by that point, I'd started to, again, find a bit of a rhythm, how often I should take ibuprofen. I'd cut out the strong cocodamol and I was on normal cocodamol. So how do I balance taking both of these at the same time when you really shouldn't? And it was a mess. And I was unreliable. But the part that hurt me the most was that people very clearly didn't believe me, both medically and work related and friends. And it was a very isolating period of time. Fast forward then to 2024, and I trip over my own feet and burst my spleen. End up in hospital, internal bleeding, all that jazz, and they do an MRI, and the MRI comes up saying that I have a tiny blood clot. And they said, you know, we're going to keep an eye on it, but it should just dissolve itself. This isn't unusual. You know, you had internal bleeding, this wasn't unusual. But they wanted to keep an eye on it. So I went for one more MRI. That original one was in the March. The next one was in June, before I went to Disneyland Paris. Literally 6 hours before my flight, I was in the hospital having an MRI. Come back from my trip, waited the 4 weeks that they said it would be, didn't hear anything, went back to my doctors. They told me there was no sign I'd even had an MRI. It wasn't even on my record. Called the hospital, who said it's got nothing to do with them because they processed it through my doctor. Called the doctor. Doctor said it's got nothing to do with them because it was the hospital that ordered it. Backwards and forwards. And essentially it was, they're gone. And so when I said, can I get them done again? The doctor I was with at the time said, no, you don't need it. You're obviously fine. So I changed doctors. I've actually got a doctor who's just down the road from me now. And I got my first appointment shortly after this all happened, and I sat in her office and I cried bucket loads. I was just so tired of people not listening to me, and things were getting worse. I'd started to lose feeling down my legs and in my arms if I sat back or laid back, and I couldn't breathe. I can't breathe anymore when I lie down. Sometimes I can't breathe if I'm like sat on the sofa because it's slightly lower to the ground, and I was like, I feel like it's all connected. So she ordered another MRI. That MRI showed that it wasn't a blood clot, it was actually a cyst on my left ovary. We then had to go through testing to see, one, how big it was, and two, if it was cancerous, because cancer runs in my family. It is a gene that we all seem to have, and it's, you know, it's taken a lot of my relatives. Luckily it's not cancer, but at that time it was approximately 13 centimeters wide, so a very small melon, and it had stuck itself to my uterus, my bladder and my bowel, and it was caused by endometriosis. So I officially got diagnosed. She then referred me to our local hospital, and the hospital wanted to do more tests. That took 2 months. Went for the tests, it had grown again. It's now closer to 20 centimeters. And it's rapidly growing. There is now also a second cyst on my right ovary. That cyst looks to be polycystic. That's a whole different chronic condition to have. Yeah. So the plan is I'm going to be having a C-section at some point in the future. We don't know when. They've said it will be before the end of the year. And I'm gonna have the cysts removed, but there's a very high chance I have to have my left ovary completely removed as well. They're gonna go in and cut away or laser away even the endometriosis tissue that is on my uterus and my bladder They are not sure if they're gonna attack what is on my bowel yet. They don't particularly want to do a bowel surgery at the same time, because that makes recovery a lot longer. It can also make my comfort much harder to, you know, sort out and cope with. And then once that's been cut out, the other side's been drained, they're gonna have to test my eggs for fertility, see if there is any viable eggs left, because they currently can't see the side and haven't been able to for about a year. Like, you can't see any of my ovaries, they're completely sealed by these cysts. So it's a mess. It's a mess that didn't need to be this messy. So I'm not okay. I've processed it. I'm very factual about it at this point. I know my process of doing these things. I'm at the factual stage. I've got over the crying, but it is constantly in my mind. I've never had a proper surgery before. I've had teeth removed and, you know, wisdom teeth extracted and things like that, but I've never been cut open before. So I feel like I shouldn't sound excited, but there is a little bit of excitement there because I've never had it before. But I am mostly scared. I want to have kids. I want to not be in pain. I want Dan to stop being constantly stressed and worried about whether his wife is going to be okay to walk about that day, or if she's going to be okay to get up and do chores or go to work. Like, seeing him stressed out about it is actually probably the hardest part, but there's nothing I can do. But yeah, so if you think there is something medically wrong with you and people aren't listening, fight for it, please. And if you are one of those people who don't believe us when we tell you we are chronically ill or we are unwell or we can't do something, take a look in the mirror for a second and reevaluate, please, because we don't need your judgment on top of what we're going through. That's the reality. I am so lucky that the school I'm currently working at are just absolute miracle workers and lifesavers. Every single staff member I've had to speak to about this has just been so supportive, so kind. I cannot count how many hugs I've had from my fellow female colleagues when we've had these conversations and I've clearly started to get upset, which I'm trying not to do because that's not the purpose of this video, is to sit here and cry on the internet. That's not the point. But it sucks. All of this sucks. And I'm scared. And I have to keep reminding myself that not having children just means my life will be different. It doesn't mean it's going to be worse or bad. It's just going to be different from how I imagined it, and that's fine. But yeah, so I thought I'd bring you on this journey with me, show you how it goes down, what recovery's like. Also because, you know, when I'm in recovery, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to video or how likely I am to be able to get content out. I don't know if I'll be able to sit up or if I'll be lying down more. So this is also sort of like your prior warning that come the end of the year, this plan I had for this year to be active and constantly like filming and putting stuff out, I may have to take a short sabbatical. Don't know yet. But if any of you have experienced this or have advice, hey, I'd really appreciate it. If you're watching, thank you for getting this far and for listening to me waffle on about my problems. Thank you for being my therapist and my personal diary. And let's see what the rest of this year brings, but it's going to be very different than what we had planned. That's for sure. Bye guys.